Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending. This is the City of West Liberty, Iowa regular city council meeting. The date is October 19th, 2021. We have all councilors present. Also in attendance, City Treasurer Clerk Lee Gertz and City Manager Dave Hoagland. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Passes 5-0. The first item on the agenda tonight is the swearing in of the new police officer, Maddie Fredrick. And if I could have you come up and I'll just come over here. Can somebody, since Tim's not here, somebody take some photos?
Yep.
And after we swear you in, Maddie, we'll let you take a few quick photos with your family if you'd like. Sorry.
You wanna, yeah, here, I'll move over to your chair.
Okay, raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Maddie Fredrick,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all duties as police officer
discharge all duties as police officer
for the City of West Liberty, Iowa,
for the City of West Liberty, Iowa,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations. Welcome aboard. Take a photo.
Yep, you ready?
Okay, we are on to the approval of the consent agenda. We have a few items tonight. Is the regular city council meeting minutes of October 5th, 2021. City clerk, city treasurer, report of August 2021, and approval of Class C with Sunday sale liquor license for DMH 298. And they'll be doing business as Wings Bar and Grill. And this is Donna Hormel had purchased Wings from Kenny, who has retired. We had a nice conversation with him a month ago while we were having lunch, and he's ready for retirement. And so we wished him very well.
Motion. Second.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion? Just so all the counselors know the backgrounds and everything has been done and there hasn't been any issues. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Passes 5-0. We're on to vendor vouchers claims lists, and there are 3 in front of us. The first one is in the amount of $752,728.19.
Motion. Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Passes 5-0. We are on to vendor vouchers claims list number 2. And this is to Cardinal Sign Graphic in the amount of $120.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Just in case anybody's wondering why we have separated these, it's because of conflict of interest and council members that have to abstain from voting. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody else? Passes 4-0 to 1 abstention. And we are on to vendor vouchers claims list number 3. And this is to Jose Zacharias. Reference the TIP economic matching grant reimbursement in the amount of $3,740.77.
Motion. Second.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And we do have 1 abstention. It passes 4-0. We're on the public comments. I'm gonna, first up, I will go ahead and let council member Jose Zacharias make some introductions, and then I will give 5 minutes. Normally we give 2 minutes, but because of the crowd and the information and possibly a couple of interpreters or so, we're gonna go ahead and extend it to 5 minutes.
Thank you. At the beginning of the pandemic, the government of Mr. Joe Biden put together a plan to stimulate the economy in the amount of $1.9 trillion assigned and distributed by 2024 and spent by 2026. In our vicinity, Iowa City is about to decide that they are going to help this coalition of excluded workers that I will define later on in the amount of 1 million, probably 1 million dollars. Excluded workers is alluding all those workers that did not receive any money from the federal government, a 600 check, the $1,400 check, or any kind of money for the federal government. Nonetheless, these people were working constantly in jobs that primarily are done by Hispanics or people of color. And they received the brunt of the pandemic. We're talking about Tyson, we're talking the hospitality industry, we're talking people who work with us here in town at the grocery store, et cetera, et cetera. The designation of essential workers have nothing to do with protecting the workers we're talking about. It had to do with the state purpose of the federal government was to protect the companies for stopping production, and later on for not letting the workers putting lawsuits against those companies for keeping working under the conditions that we are all aware. The city of West Liberty has been allocated federal money in the amount of $520,000.
About 560.
Yeah.
560. I believe that having lived here in this town for 37 years and knowing everyone here in this town, in this crowd, knowing the conditions they work under and all the problems they face because they are, for the most part, undocumented, I believe that the city of West Liberty has no legal obligations to help them. Nonetheless, we have a moral obligation to do the best we can in trying to provide some relief. How? I don't know. It's up to the city council to decide whether or not this can be possible. And I invited, for that purpose, 2 people to make statements about it. They are going to do the statements in Spanish. We have a translator with us, so please pay attention.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es María Díaz, yo vivo en West Liberty por 22 años.
Good evening, my name is Maria Diaz and I have lived in West Liberty for 22 years.
Yo estoy apoyando a los trabajadores excluidos de este grupo
And I am supporting the excluded workers from this group tonight
porque nos han notificado de ese fondo que hay
because we have been notified about the money that is there.
y no precisamente a mí me ha afectado la pandemia, la enfermedad,
And not necessarily the pandemic had affected me, health-wise,
pero he llorado con mucha gente que hemos perdido
but I had cried with a lot of people that have lost their loved ones.
y conozco a mucha gente que necesita de su ayuda.
And I know a lot of people that need from the city help.
Yo por eso estoy apoyando a este grupo,
That's why I'm helping and supporting this group,
porque yo sé y conozco gente trabajadora, esencial,
because I know people that are essential workers,
muy trabajadores,
very
que
hard workers,
entre la pandemia no pararon
that since the pandemic started, they have not stopped working. They've been, working
y
constantly,
sin ninguna ayuda de los jefes,
and with no help from their employers,
siempre exigiéndoles más. Cuando
always asking for them more to do.
E incluso
demanding
cuando
more,
ellos lo dan todo en un trabajo.
including when they give their all for their jobs, to keep their jobs.
Porque como latinos hispanos creo que valemos mucho, tenemos derechos, somos seres humanos y estamos apoyando a la causa.
And as Hispanic, Latin people that we're here, we're worth a lot. We work our hearts off and that's why we're supporting each other.
A mí me tocó trabajar en el Mercy cuando recién empezó la pandemia
I had the chance to work at Mercy Hospital at the beginning of the pandemic.
y lo que yo vi es una discriminación horrible
And
para los hispanos.
I witnessed such a tremendous discrimination against the Hispanic population.
Yo estuve, o sea, hice todo de mí, lo di todo. Fue difícil porque yo estuve en el ICU área, lo ya, o sea, peor, ¿me entienden?
I've seen it all, I believe it all. I was directly working at the ICU and I was exposed. She was more or less working in the COVID units.
Y lamentablemente los jefes, absolutamente ni un agradecimiento.
And unfortunately, she didn't got not a thank you from, her former bosses.
Esas cosas hacen a uno, en vez de querer dar uno el 100%, yo corrí, lamentablemente, me dio mucha pena, yo corrí. O
Those
sea,
things where you're not acknowledged for the job that you do, that makes you just don't give your all anymore. And she just had to, her last resort was to just quit.
sí, es triste ver todo esto, discriminaciones, falta de, yo no sé, de humanidad, maybe.
It's hard to see how that discrimination is and how the lack of human touch that they're not acknowledged of what their job is and the conditions they work in.
So por eso yo estoy aquí representante de toda esta gente. Yo sé que hay miles más aquí en este rancho, en este pueblito, y para seguir adelante. O sea lo que Dios quiera y vamos a luchar por lo que haya para nosotros.
That's what I'm here to help out and support this group. And there is a lot more people here in town that they're probably not aware of what's going on there. They don't know the words haven't been around, but we're gonna be here with God's help and see what comes out of it.
Thank you.
There's one more speaker, and that would be the end of it.
Hola, buenas tardes. Hi, good afternoon, and I'm Emily. I'll be providing language access for Angélica. Thanks for having us. Mi nombre es Angélica Redondo Jugarín y yo tengo viviendo aquí en West Liberty 7 años. My name is Angélica and I've been living in West Liberty for 7 years. Yo vengo apoyando al Fondo de Trabajadores Excluidos. I'm here to support the Excluded Workers Fund. Yo siempre he trabajado aquí en el pueblo de West Liberty. I've always worked here in West Liberty in this town. Yo entré trabajando en la tortillería que estuvo aquí en Columbus. Yo estuve trabajando en una tortillería que estuvo aquí en West Liberty. I was working in a tortillería where they make tortillas here in West Liberty. Desgraciadamente la cerraron y tuve que cambiarme a un restaurante. Unfortunately, they closed it. They closed it and I had to find other work. Entonces ahí estuve trabajando mucho tiempo trabajando, como unos 4 años, 3 años trabajando, lavando trastes. And then I spent about 3 or 4 years working washing dishes. Nunca he recibido ninguna ayuda de mi patrón de esencial, o sea, que si no había trabajo me descansaban, pero nunca me pagaban los días. Otra vez, siempre he trabajado y cuando no hay trabajo, nunca me han pagado los días. Okay, so I've always worked, and even when there was no work, I didn't get paid for those times. Y ahí, ahorita estoy trabajando en una empacadora donde hacemos partes para refrigeradores. Right now I'm working in a packing place where they make it's refrigerator things. El año pasado que tuvo la pandemia me enfermé. Last year when the pandemic hit, I got sick. Y no tuve ninguna ayuda del fondo del gobierno. I wasn't able to get any help from the government. Ni tampoco de mi patrón. or from my employer.
Ahí estuvimos afectada mi familia, mis hijos, mis nietos también tuvieron esa enfermedad.
Everyone in my family was affected by COVID, my children.
No tuve tiempo, mi rentero no me esperó para la renta, ni tampoco tenía que esperarme para darles que comer a mis hijos.
They didn't wait for me to pay rent. I didn't have food to feed my children.
Yo por eso vengo apoyando aquí a los trabajadores excluidos para exigir que ese dinero pues, se quede aquí para la ayuda de nosotros.
That's why I'm here to support the excluded workers fund, to tell you, to plead that the money goes to them for some relief.
Habemos mucha gente, fue mucha gente la que nunca hemos tenido ningún apoyo del gobierno ni nuestros patrones.
There's a lot of people that haven't received any kind of help from the government or their employers.
Nosotros si nos dicen que no hay trabajo en donde estamos, vamos a otro lado a buscar trabajo, pero nunca recibimos ayuda ni de nuestros renteros, ni de nuestros patrones. En la comunidad es donde tenemos la ayuda nosotros, nos dan comida en la iglesia, nos da ayuda el padre en la iglesia.
So if they don't have work for us, we always go look for other work, but we don't get help from the government or employers. There is some help in the community from food banks or the churches.
Por eso nosotros venimos aquí diciendo que nos ayuden, que nos apoyen, que necesitamos ese dinero para podernos salir adelante junto con nuestras familias y todos los que estamos unidos aquí ahorita.
And that's why we're here in front of you to ask for your help with this money, so that we can get some kind of relief and that we can move forward with our families.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys coming. You know, a lot of times you can read these stories in the paper, but you don't, there's no human emotion or you don't see the basis behind some of the stories. It makes it a lot more human, I guess, for a lack of a better term. that
Él
I can
dice,
think of.
gracias por venir a decir lo que quiere decir. Muchas veces se puede leer lo que está pasando, pero para escuchar de ustedes mismos significa mucho más.
¿Pueden dejarme hablar? ¿Se me daría mucho? Si podrían dejarme unos 2 minutos.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Ella está en-
Good.
So, is she okay to talk?
Yes.
Can we keep it to a minute? We're about like at 12 or 13 minutes. And this will be the last.
Okay.
Okay, yo tengo 14 años viviendo en Las Liberty.
I've been living here for 14 years.
Tengo una hija en Army.
I have a daughter who's in the army.
Okay. No recibí ninguna ayuda del gobierno tampoco.
I didn't receive any help from the government during, well, she didn't say this, but she's referring to during the pandemic.
Y puedo decir de todas las cosas que nosotros hemos sufrido, discriminación,
And I
mucha,
can tell you
exageradamente.
that all the things that we have suffered, especially discrimination, it's just to the extreme.
Cuando empezó la pandemia, yo en mi trabajo, inclusive nosotros los trabajadores tuvimos que comprar hasta las mascarillas.
Even just at my work, when the pandemic started, we as the workers had to buy our own masks.
Cuando nosotros reunimos a nuestro jefe, nosotros hablamos sobre el problema que nosotros teníamos de la pandemia y él dijo que eso no, si nosotros queríamos, nosotros nos podíamos ir.
When we were at work during the pandemic, we did have a meeting with our boss. We talked about the problems that we were having during the pandemic, and they told us if we didn't want to be here, we could leave.
Soy cocinera, es mi trabajo.
That's what I do for work. I'm a cook.
Y me gusta lo que hago.
I like what I do.
Me gusta servir a las personas.
I like to serve people.
En West Liberty, como sea, a las personas que vienen y me dicen, me gusta lo que haces.
People
No.
come, they tell me I like what you do.
Lo que nosotros, creo yo, como trabajadores, es lo que nos ha hecho que nosotros estemos ahí.
We're the ones as workers, we're there.
Así es.
Thank you.
Gracias.
I appreciate you, everybody coming. The city council has not even started to work with the process of what the council is going to use the CARE money for.
El concilio de West Liberty no ha siquiera empezado a pensar en cómo se va a gastar ese.
So probably to keep in communication with council members, email addresses on the website or phone calls, or come into periodically you could even drop a note off at City Hall. We do have mailboxes, so even handwritten notes can be delivered to the council.
So mantenga la comunicación con el gobierno de esta ciudad a través de notas, a través de correos electrónicos y vamos a ver qué pasa.
And we do have all the information that was provided. So that was in all counselors' mailboxes, or all counselors' council packets for the meeting.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
could I ask a question? I'm curious if you had mentioned fund earlier, if there is a fund outside of town, but if there is a overall umbrella fund for this at all.
For the excluded workers. So right now, we're working with the Johnson County
Johnson
supervisors and Iowa City. They're, every county and every city is going to receive CARES Act money. And so we're working with them right now. And they are in support of providing direct cash payments or stimulus checks to undocumented workers. It is an allowable use under the rules, so that's a good thing. So we're just, we continue to work with them to find out how much and how it will be distributed and so forth. A lot of, just one quick thing is another struggle, we want to make it easy for people to access the funds. A lot of times there's so many barriers to apply for relief, and it's just not something that people can meet because they might not have their rent in their name or their light in their name. And so less paperwork, internet access is a problem, transportation, computers. So we're working with them to make it very easy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Emily,
Gracias por
we appreciate everyone coming. We are going to head on to the next item, Ken Brooks. Ken is our new We Lead director. And he wanted to come to the council and introduce himself and maybe kind of tell us, I've heard that you hit the ground with your feet running, so kind of like that.
Yeah, I did my best, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for the opportunity. I won't take up too much of your valuable time, but I did want to officially come and introduce myself to this council. I've had the pleasure of meeting most of you independently. So thank you for those opportunities. Really excited to be here at the helm of We Lead. We obviously have a housing crisis here in West Liberty that is one of the top priorities of We Lead moving forward. So we'll be working to address the housing issue. Excited to help existing businesses grow what they have. We have a lot of really neat businesses here in town, a lot of successful businesses that can continue to grow, be more successful. I'm interested in helping residents who don't have a business but are interested in starting businesses. That's on the list. And of course, we want to market our community, which is wonderful, outside of the city limits and bring in some of these new businesses to help everybody here prosper. My background is in nonprofit management. I spent the last 2 years and change with Boys and Girls Clubs in the Quad Cities, and 6 years before that working for the Boy Scouts of America. So I come at this with a very different approach. I'm very community oriented. I'm a team builder. I have really good listening ears. So that's what I intend to do. I also have a passion for youth programming. And I'm looking forward to setting up meetings with the school district to see how we can work on existing workforce development programs in middle school and high school and coordinate that with the needs of local businesses so that as students are going off into secondary education or workforce training, we can make sure that the needs of the local businesses are also being met so we're not losing these students outside the community. Wherever they go to learn, we'd like to be able to either provide that here or give them an avenue to return after they complete their education. So everybody knows where my office is. Get to share with these fine folks with the city right now. So please, anytime you're there, stop by, come see me. And got some neat folks making me some business cards here too. I'll have those for you next time with my cell phone on it. Does anybody have any questions for me?
No.
Thank you.
Ken.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and go through the council with public comments or correspondence. Councilmember Rock. Councilmember McFerrin.
Oh, I'm sure there's something, but I can't think of anything right at the moment.
Councilmember Smith.
Gotcha.
Councilmember Zachary.
Thank you.
Diane, no. Okay, how about from our administrative staff, any correspondence, email, verbal, or written?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. We're going to venture on to new business then. The farmer's market event is requested to close an hour earlier for additional activities. This is in our council packet. I didn't really see anything. Anybody have any questions or any concerns?
This is street closure?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's actually just an hour earlier. Right now, they kept their closing at 3 o'clock, I believe.
Yeah.
And they, on their last weekend, I happened to stop the market last weekend, they were wanting to close an hour earlier, they're gonna arrange some activities for the kids. They originally talked about doing a costume contest, and they said, well, not all kids have costumes. So they decided to do pumpkin decorating, I said, well, just so happens, the police department is giving away a costume, so Chief is gonna take his group down there that night, they're gonna set up and hand out costumes at the farmer's market as well. They just wanted to be able to set up a little bit earlier to be prepared for
Yeah, for the, kind of like the special Halloween.
Yeah, from staff standpoint, we don't have a problem with those.
There's a motion second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Passes 5-0. We have resolution 2021-1019-53. And this is to fix a date for the public hearing on the proposal of entering into sewer revenue refunding loan agreement and to borrow money in a principal amount not to exceed $1.92 million.
Motion.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
Just wanted to pass on, we had met with Chip Schultz with Northland, we were talking about some other projects, and he brought to our attention that we were at that point where we could refund this note agreement, somewhere in the neighborhood of $67,000 savings over the life of reissuing those bonds. The intent is to basically do what you folks have done prior to my getting here. That's hopefully place those with the local banks and have that done. And I'm sure Chip will be here at the next meeting to answer any specific questions that you have.
Okay, any further?
When are we doing the public hearing?
November 2nd.
Did I miss some of this, something?
No, it's not
the
on the
resolution.
front sheet of the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to hold November 2nd as the public hearing to refinance this loan?
Yeah, we did that.
Oh, shoot, I'm sorry,
We did it, I just didn't know the date.
yeah, added in there, okay. Any further? Hearing none, Councilmember Bronick,
Yes.
Zacharias,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
McFerrin,
Yes.
Rock.
Yes.
Passes 5-0. We will have the public hearing on November 2nd. We're on to resolution -59, change order number 7 for City Hall and Police Building upgrades, CG construction in the amount of $3,502.11.
Motion.
Motion and second. Is there any further discussion?
The change order has to do with the rekeying of the doors. I think the information was within the packet.
Correct.
It's at the card reader.
Okay, hearing no further, Councilor Bryan,
Yes.
Zacharias. Yes. Smith,
Yes.
McFerrin.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Resolution -55. And this is to authorize the purchase of furniture for phase 1 of the building upgrade project.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion or explanation? Hearing none. Councilmember McFerrin,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Roth,
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Zacharias.
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Resolution -56 is to approve an agreement with Northland Securities in the amount of $3,500 to complete a garbage rate study.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. I'll start discussion. When's the last time we did solid waste rate study? Has it been a while?
2013.
2013. Yeah.
It's-
Okay.
It's time, and the fee that's being charged is not.
Yeah, the only thing that's probably saving us from gross expense of higher rates is probably our recycling.
Well, I thought we did a little bit of a rate study with the recycling, didn't we?
It wasn't a formal rate study.
Okay.
They just did an informal where they checked, just did an internal checking some rates. Again, at the time when we did the recycle program, it was our understanding that there was a market for the recycling and there's no market for that. So, that expense is not getting offset by what was originally thought would happen with a credit back for recycling. So that's put us where our expenditures are continuing to grow and along with operational costs. We also know that we're going to need to start looking at a new garbage truck. So with all of that said, that was what it was timely to.
Garbage truck, what number are we talking about? A garbage truck.
Oh, if you get this, if you're looking at the one that's a single man that grabs the cans, those are probably starting in the neighborhood of $250,000 to $300,000. For a chassis and a rear load packer, you're gonna be in that, I'm gonna say one, I'm guessing, I haven't bought one recently, but I'll say probably around 160 to 170, maybe a little more.
Yeah, we purchased the single arm, and that one was $250,000 a few years ago. So you can imagine, yeah, so Dave's, probably pretty close when he's saying 300,000, given today's,
But that one is still good, it's still.
Yeah.
You're probably gonna replace a cabin chassis and a rear packer before you go that, but the beauty about the one-man trucks with the arms is it really cuts down on your work comp claims and injuries to your workers by going that route. So I mean, there are some cost savings associated with that more expensive truck.
So, with this rate study, it would be just like we've talked with previous rate studies. I encourage the council to just put a 1 or 2% kicker on the end that it increases 1% or 2% every year until the next rate study, because we found ourselves in the process of 10% rate, and doing a 1% or 2% when it's costing somebody $1 more a month is a little bit easier to swallow than when you go 5 years past when you should have done a rate study and you're talking 10 to 20%, and now you're talking $10 or $15 a month increase. That's, a little bit easier for, our residents to, cycle or put that into their budget.
You'll find even with like a 3% increase, probably based on your race, that 3% increase is probably 50 cents less, or just a hair over. My previous community, we were doing 3% on an annual basis, and it was, 51, 52, 53 cents, just to bump it up so we didn't get behind.
So we probably really need to look at doing that with all.
And I think this rate study will probably tell us where we kind of need to be and where we need to be looking forward based upon, what they're gonna project, because they'll look at, through this study, they'll look at the age of the trucks, they'll kind of pad out when those are gonna have to be replaced. They'll look at, the cost of employees and what that goes up each year. They'll look at what the history of the tipping fees at the landfill have been. They'll look to see what recycling is costing us now, because it is costing rather than helping to pay for it. So I mean, they'll take all those factors into account and they'll come up with some sort of a projected rate that we want to look at for probably the next 5 or 6 years or longer.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none. Councilor Bryant?
Yes.
Councilor Zacharias?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
McFerrin?
Yes,
Rock?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. We're on to resolution -57. This to approve electric department in the Parks and Rec hire and salary for the fiscal year 2021, 2022.
Motion.
second.
Motion is second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember McFerrin,
Yes,
Councilmember Rock,
Yes.
Councilmember Bryant,
Yes.
Councilmember Zacharias.
Yes.
Passes 5-0. We are on to discussion or appropriate follow-up for well number 2 for additional contract services with Morrison Construction and Lovewell Fencing. And we have Leo. Leo, how's this project coming?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Leo.
Okay, good. Okay, so if we get approval tonight, we could get Lovewell started and nobody will work until Lovewell gets done with the fence. And then at that time, Morrison would come in and followed up quickly by Northway. I think all the ducks are in a row now to get it done. And I still think it's a wise move to do it. And then once we have the brushing and the televising, then we can finish up the rest of that study. We recommend approval and we think we can get it done this fall so that in the spring we can be back to you with what should we really do with that well.
Any questions for Leo?
And staff's option on the fencing was to use option 2. That was to go ahead and have the gates installed rather than or putting in a temporary fence, bringing back the fencing, because if this goes forward, we'll end up putting gates in anyway, and I don't want to pay more for putting gates in later when we can get them for $1,800 more.
That was an $800 change to add the gate, the 20-foot swing gate.
Okay.
Motion. With the gate.
Motion to approve with the gate, and there's a second. Any further? None, all in favor? Anybody opposed? This 5-0.
Thank you.
Setting a date for the work session on at 6:30 and the RPC upon procedure. And this is the sewer.
Motion.
Second.
Motion. Hearing none, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Okay, we have a work session. Okay, we are on to our last reports. City.
Yes, Rainbow Ave, we've got a preliminary drawings now that show 2 or 3 different alternatives. We're putting costs with them. I'm a little behind myself. I think my staff's a little ahead of me. So I think next week we can get together with your staff and show them the alternatives we have, and hopefully we'll have some costs associated with those alternatives. And that'll make us be done with the preliminary design. After we get together with you after that, we can move forward to final design. That's on Rainbow Ave. The next one, I did put together a cost estimate. We did put a cost estimate together for 4th and Miller. And basically, we went out and looked at that with the city manager as well as Danny. And there are some drainage issues. We think we could take care of them either way, whether we go with PCC or brick. And we basically just showed you the 2 alternatives. And we put together our latest, greatest costs. This is what concrete and brick's been costing us lately. It seemed a little high to me, but just remember those are budgetary type numbers. If the city staff had time and wanted to try to do it themselves, certainly they could bring that in cheaper. But this is to have somebody like All American bid the project against others. And that would be what we think the cost would be.
I had sent you a text. Councilman Baronic asked about concrete, like he did on the 3rd at that intersection. So I have a proposal for that as well.
I'm sorry, I missed that. You said that you got a text to me?
I sent a text to you earlier about possibility for that intersection, which would be the stamped colored concrete, what you did on.
Yes, when we did a probably the same size as that intersection in LeClaire this summer with stamp colored, very similar. So we could put a 3rd option together very easily.
Any questions for Leo? Okay, thank you, Leo.
All right, thank you.
These staff minutes, anything that that's outside?
Outside of the minutes, I would, last Friday, He provided a tour of West Liberty Foods to Ken Brooks and myself. We got to go through the whole process and got to learn a little bit about their business. It was a great tour. Just want to let you know that Chief Worley and I have both received some emails from the Olsons, and we do plan to meet with them next Monday at 4:15. I received a text from Brad Akers late last week. He said he would hopefully get freed up this week. He's got some numbers that he wants to share with me to start talking about a development agreement for his project. So I'm just waiting to hear from him when he's available. We did hear back from Casey Bell after meeting with her. She sent an email to Lee, which Lee forwarded on to me as well. They did talk to their bank about the lease potentially could work for that property rather than selling. So I've got, I'm scheduling meetings with both of the local bankers here in town, and I know that Casey's using one of them, so I thought I would at least do that discussion, find out what some of their concerns, that need to be covered in a lease for that to go forward, so we can keep that moving, and then we'll start drafting up a lease agreement for that. And then the other thing that I just want to make you aware of, that we're going to present something at the next meeting, is that as we've been here, we've kind of been through the city code. I hate to say it, it's just not a very well written code. There's a lot of stuff that's outdated. So I reached out to the folks at Simmering and Corey, who are right here in Iowa, and have written a number of municipalities from the state have their code book. I think it's easier to follow. I like the format better. They put together a price for us, which really surprised me, because the last two code updates that I've done were in the neighborhood of 15 to 20,000, and they can do ours for about 9,000. It's a 12 to 15 month process. So Justin, who I know, Justin used to be a assistant city manager up in Storm Lake. He and a partner bought out Simmering and Corey after Tom had passed, and then Marcia has passed as well. But they're running the show now. They've got a lot of cities that they do the code for, and it'll be much easier to follow. American Legal will still host it, and we can actually get it hosted for a little bit cheaper going through Simmering and Corey. So I just want to just to kind of make you aware of it, but we'll bring Justin's proposal or have it in your packet at the next meeting. It's something we'd like to look at moving forward on.
And just to follow up on that, so for you that didn't know, Sterling Codifiers, who we've been working with, they had merged over with the American Legal. So again, I mean, they're the ones that are hosting our site now, but that lot has changed over at Sterling Codifiers. So
One thing that when I was in my previous community, they were using codification companies over in other states, and they just don't fully, I don't think they fully get everything that happens in the states. So I think having that local codifier makes more sense. I think we'll get a better product and one that'll staff as well as our residents and our council members can, I think you'll find a better product to be able to use online and find things. So.
Okay, let's move on to the sewer report. Is Craig with us tonight?
the sewer report that's in your packet is from Danny for the EPA.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thought that Craig would be with our sewer, but okay, is Danny available?
No.
Okay, just what's in our, I just wanted to make sure,
Yeah.
always the superintendents, if they're on,
Just
I want to hear if they have anything
sure, yeah,
special.
just to clarify, so the sewer report that we continue outside of the city staff minutes, the sewer report that we continue to put in there is the order with EPA, when we're supposed to provide documentation and report to council on bypasses, lift station issues. And that goes on over to Leo, and he files those with those reports that were mandated to complete. So that is the sewer report there.
Okay, and building and grounds, anything special from building and grounds? Council members?
We toured the City Hall. They still have a whole bunch of, I would say a lot of little things that need to be. What date have they given us now? Halloween? No.
Actually, we just received a report from Tara, and they have ticked off a lot of the, ticked off, that wasn't, checked off. what I was trying to say. They have checked off quite a bit of those smaller items. But Dave did, get some pictures again, because our windows still need to have, caulking around them, they still have, but it was the communication was that they have that and they'll be getting it done.
And the front door
And the front door has been.
Front door's got glass in it
Yeah.
and it's,
adjusted
Yes.
so it doesn't have
Yeah.
leaks and holes and.
Yeah.
and actually along the side where they kind of chipped the brick to put the frame in, they've already got that area. So
Yeah.
that was done, and you just hadn't touched those windows yet.
They haven't caulked across the front.
No, well, those, once they get the skim coat done, on
the
that
planter
planter,
that we all love.
then there's, I don't know, I don't want to say flashings, but there's a piece that will go, and then those little
The spacers.
spacers will be removed.
And the electricians, to my understanding, we're finishing up today. So the goal is to get done this week, so the PD, police department can start.
But we want to do another walkthrough before people goes in to make sure that
Yes.
if they go in and something's not right, then we'll get the for it. So I want to do at least one more walkthrough.
Well, we definitely gotta get that railing down too. I mean,
Yeah, we need to get the railing.
Safe, right, on that. Have they contacted anybody yet, see what that's gonna?
So, the railing is gonna be, through our discussion, the railing wasn't in the proposal.
Right.
So the railing would have to be an after.
We'll probably do it.
Piece.
It'll be, rest of it ourselves.
Well, we
Well,
talked
I
about getting
understand.
hold of a couple of our local.
Right.
We still need to have a discussion with Terry.
Okay.
On whether or not, if it was, because there was a brief discussion and, the Tara had, was gonna speak to, some of the engineers again. But based on what she had knowledge of, what they'd already went through, is that, it didn't require, to have a railing. So, again, it would have to go back to our local, building inspector to see if Terry has anything to add with it. And then if that, either whether it's a compliance or a building, if council would just rather prefer that we have one put in there, then that's the reason why we're saying it's probably better off that we just keep that as our own project to get a quote and then have Terry inspect it and help us decide.
Well, I think we need railing, but I mean, we can do it on our own, but I definitely believe that, I mean, because the people, elderly, to get up there, there's nothing for them to hold on to,
Right.
right? And with that railing along that one side where the planter is, I mean, at least that, so people have something to hold on to as they're walking. But I think it's gonna become a trip hazard for us, the way that walk is and the people that come off and that ledge. If we don't put something along that ledge in certain spots, we might have bigger issues than not having a railing.
Well, I think our goal was to get things finished inside. We're not going to be moving over there probably for the next month.
Okay.
So that gives us time. Well, I know we have a local contractor who does the railing.
Yes.
So, I mean, again, I guess what we wanted to do is focus on getting that project done and get those things done inside. So,
Yeah, we have two, yeah.
Yeah.
We were gonna reach out to both of them.
Okay, so let's,
And I guess the other thing that we talked about was pushing up phase 2 a year earlier rather than
Yeah.
waiting until 2023 to start design and then build in 24. We're working on putting some things together to have council consider moving forward on phase 2 here next year.
Because the way we looked at it right now is us staying here, we can work this out with the library. And then what was the conference room, council chambers over there. Nick and Jake would be in that room. Because there's no other, otherwise we're gonna have to rent space if we leave. And since that room is only used twice a month for us, It just seemed more logical to put them in there. And us here as long as we can. Until we, and move up phase 2, move it up earlier than what we originally planned. But we haven't figured out all the finances yet, and
We, or Lee and I did meet with Chip, so we've got him at least looking at, it, so he can come back to the committee with some ideas and stuff, so we were kind of pursuing all of our avenues.
yeah. So that's an option. And the other thing we need to talk about is the planter out front. That is just so beautiful. That instead of putting plants in it, because you all know what problems we had with the statue and the plantings around the statue. And we don't want to have to go through that again. So we have discussed several I guess a couple different options. Some is just some decorative rock with some artwork, or Nick had suggested he's seen where the city name is spelled out in fairly large letters and put across there. So that's something we'll have to look at down the road. Nothing right away, but I don't recommend live plants in there. We have enough problems keeping stuff alive. We did before. And nobody wants to maintain it. That's the other thing, that old planter. Nobody wanted to take care of it. So it just goes to weed. So we're gonna do something different in this planter that, other than real plants. I don't know what. But
Koi pond.
I suggested a pond that it was actually deep enough. But yeah, so we're gonna do something. We don't know what.
Good, sounds
Think
like
about it
some,
if you have an idea.
sounds like some future discussions for council.
And then just one quick thing tying into building and grounds. And we have received a couple inquiries as to whether or not the city is going to have an open house when the construction is done. The other inquiry was from Chuck Newcomb, was thinking if we were gonna do an open house for the construction, if the city could maybe schedule that dedication of the statue, if we could coordinate that and take a look at that again.
The only
So,
problem with the open house, we're not gonna have our real furniture.
Yeah, it sounds
So-
like
we
it's
could
gonna
put
be.
cardboard boxes in there and stage it.
So Chuck must have been reading my mind, because I had been given this thought and was gonna talk to the administration was, when we have our holiday open house type of festival where everybody walks through the downtowns and that might be a good time to rededicate the statue. And I was gonna see, if Chuck was still available to do that. And so, I mean, because I think if we did it at that time, that's probably where we're gonna have the most attendance of individuals to be present during, open house. That was kind of just my thought about that.
Something to consider, yeah.
Well, and I hadn't, that had just come in later this afternoon. And I hadn't had an opportunity to talk to the city manager about that. But I just didn't know also if Mr. Newcomb had reached out to either one of you.
He had not, actually, I
So I
thought,
wanted to make sure I made a note of that. With what you said, Mayor, and so we can discuss it further.
okay. I thought of that when I was mowing my lawn and I was, in the front yard, because knew Chuck was, neighbors with me for the last,
100 years.
100 years, yeah, so.
My only concern with the open house is, there's just not a whole lot of room to move people in and around in the building.
Well, my
So-
concern is not as much open house as in the open house to have residents go through City Hall, but more the
The
dedication
statue.
of the statue.
Yeah,
So give that some thought.
yeah, I guess I don't know that we're ready to have people through the building yet.
Well, there's just really nowhere to go.
There's really not much to see here at this point.
No.
So,
We would be happy though, we can take some pictures and we can provide some pictures and, if residents, want to contact us and, once we get moved in, but. again,
And maybe in
space
the
is very
springtime,
small.
in the springtime when kind of everything's, set in place and and City Hall's had a chance to calm down from moving and getting everything, maybe we can just kind of host a special open house. You know, maybe have some, you know, snacks or something and just post anybody that wants to come through and see the, you know, instead of trying to rush everything and not have, you know, people available to go and we're still not settled in. Okay. Okay, is there any other council members that have any business reference committees? Any boards or anything that you guys have attended in the last couple of weeks?
Just a question, are you gonna be at the forum coming Thursday?
Yes.
Okay, anything else? Hearing none, I would welcome the motion. Second? Is there any further? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We are closed for business.